and I quote, "Who did ever agree on a rules-based global order?" End of quote. Well, the Russians did, certainly. They did it when they signed the UN Charter, just like all other nations of the world, and when they negotiated the Helsinki Final Act. The rules-based global order belongs to the world. It is the best antidote against perpetual instability in all continents. And all nations in the world see this. Interestingly, even some of Russia's closest allies are questioning Putin's war of choice and refusing to recognize the sham referenda. The Samarkand summit, where China and India have clearly voiced concerns about the war, was a fiasco for Russia. But there is no room for complacency about this. Russia's failure alone won't save the rules-based global order, because the Kremlin's revisionism is not the only nor the most serious threat to the rules-based order. The so-called no-limit partnership declared by Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping is also a clear challenge to the post-war order built on the core values of the UN Charter. And of course, we are observing carefully the aftermath of the 20th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party to see any changes to China's international posture. Independent of this, we need to counter this global challenge. We must rebuild trust in our global goals, in our global rules, and the universal values at their heart. And we all know that this is not an easy task. I was at the United Nations last month, and I have listened to the concerns of countries from all over the world, just like you do it every single day in your work. Many countries feel that the global economy and the international system do not work for them. Some have even fallen for Russia's propaganda. Russia's propaganda that is trying to deflect blame for the causes of the energy and food crisis. And therefore, all of us in this room must speak up and stand up for the truth. And I know that you are doing this tirelessly every single day. I know this is tough. I know this is hard work. I know that sometimes you are exhausted. And we think like, but I've said that over and over again. But I just want to thank you for that, because this is the essence of your work, and this is the essence of the trust that is built abroad into the European Union. I believe Europe must always speak up for the values we believe in and support everyone who is fighting for these values. For instance, the brave Iranian women who demand freedom and equality. A young woman was killed by the so-called morality police. Thousands of peaceful protesters are being beaten and detained, men and women, lawyers and journalists, activists and ordinary citizens. This is a cry for equality. It's a cry for women's rights. And our message must be crystal clear. We must call for the violence to stop. Women must have a chance to choose. And we must hold accountable those who are responsible for the repression of women. So I believe now is the time to sanction these people who are responsible. The shocking violence inflicted on the Iranian people cannot stay unanswered, and we have to work on sanctions together. But there's more. In these times of transformation and these times of turmoil, Europe must even engage more on the global stage. We must consolidate our capacity to protect our values. We must reach out to all countries, from like-minded democracies to others who may share some of our interests on specific issues. So today I would like to draw some lessons on how we can engage with different partners. First of all, with like-minded democracies. Second, with future members of our Union. Third, with our wider neighborhood. And finally, with countries all across the world as a means to promote our interests and to advance our values on global stage. So let me begin with the like-minded partners. Never before have I experienced such an intense cooperation with the White House as I did this year. It is a cooperation we have built since the start of President Biden's mandate, when we managed to find a solution to long-standing issues, you know them all, such as the steel tariffs, the Airbus-Boeing dispute, and securing data flow. And our cooperation got even stronger in the run-up to Russia's invasion. I was in Washington in November as tensions started to rise at our eastern border, you recall Belarus. And we saw the growing threat. And we confirmed our support to Ukraine's independence and territorial integrity. So we prepared the sanctions very early this year, already with the White House. And when Ukraine was invaded by Russia, we were ready to act. We coordinated our sanctions round after round. We stepped up our energy coordination and energy supplies on both sides. It helped enormously that I had the agreement with President Biden on the LNG, and they really stepped up in delivering LNG towards the European Union. And this made it possible for us to diversify away from Russian fossil fuels. And now, the transatlantic bond is stronger than ever at a crucial time for Europe. This is not only about our friends in the United States, but about all our like-minded partners. This core of like-minded democracies share our values and our outlook on the world. They are our most natural partners on all the most pressing issues of our times. And let me mention 3 of these issues. First, on energy. As you all witness, Russia keeps using its fossil fuels as a weapon against us. And like-minded partners like the United States and, for example, Norway have massively stepped up and helped us break free from our very dangerous dependency. Let me give you 2 figures. At the beginning of the war, if you look at pipeline gas, the imported pipeline gas, 41% was imported from Russia. Now we're down to 7.5% in only 8 months. This is a huge move. It's an enormous decrease, necessary decrease. We would have never, ever been able to do that if it wouldn't have been for our close friends and partners like, for example, Norway and like the United States with LNG coming in. So now we have to work even more closely with exactly those partners to calm down the price of gas imports. Because we all see that because of the Russian behavior, cutting gas supplies to the European Union, overall energy is scarce in the world. The market is really tired. So the prices are skyrocketing. And therefore we have started talks with Norway. We want to find deals that can be beneficial for both sides. Our partners have an interest to secure long-term contracts, of course with us, the largest market on earth, and at the same time to invest in renewables. The Norwegians say, if we lower prices, less revenues will go to the wealth fund, which is for the next generation. So you take something away from the next generation. Let's look together into the topic of renewables. And we, of course, have an interest to curb the crazy peaks in energy prices while also transforming towards renewables. So there is a lot of common ground. Second example, the international investment. The United States and other partners share our value-based approach to infrastructure investment. And we have the same goals. For instance, to speed up the transition to clean energy or to strengthen healthcare in developing countries. So why don't we team up with them on joint projects and complementary investments? And this is exactly what we are planning together with the United States. President Biden and I are convening a leaders' summit really to push forward a value-based investment agenda for the world. I'll come back to that later, that's Global Gateway. But I just want to mention the third example that shows how important these moves are with our best friends. That is raw materials. Take lithium or take rare earth metals. They are vital for our green and digital transition. No wind turbine, no solar panel without these raw materials. The demand for them will exponentially increase, that's for sure. That is good news, first of all, because it shows that the green transition is progressing. That's good. The not so good news is one country dominates the whole global market, and that's China. So, in addition, these resources should always be extracted in a responsible way. That should be our goal, both for the environment and for local communities. So part of the solution is to step up our cooperation with like-minded partners, like Canada, like Chile, or like Australia, because together we can both secure the resources we need and promote a value-based approach to the extraction of raw materials. We must mobilize our collective power to shape global goods and the world of tomorrow. My second point is about future members of our union. It's now a year ago that I visited the Western Balkans, and it was so obvious that our opponents look at the Western Balkans as a geopolitical chessboard. Their goal is to drive a wedge between the Western Balkans and the rest of Europe. And yet, the overwhelming majority, and that's heartwarming, the overwhelming majorities of citizens in the Western Balkans aspire to be part of the European Union. And that is why we must strengthen the credibility of our accession process. This year, the opening of the accession process and the negotiations with Albania and North Macedonia was a true milestone. Finally. It was tough to get there, to say the least, but we are there now. That's important. We must make sure that every positive step that is done in a country, that a country takes, brings it really closer to the European Union. And in parallel, we must push the integration of our economies even further. 1 year ago, I walked on an EU-funded bridge connecting Croatia with Bosnia and Herzegovina. I saw railway projects, I saw schools, I saw hospitals and kindergartens that were financed all across the region by the European Union. So this kind of engagement is even more relevant today, as the fallout of Putin's energy war is also hitting the region. 2 weeks ago, I was in Sofia for the inauguration of a new gas interconnector with Greece. It will serve not only Bulgaria, but also North Macedonia and Serbia. As the Western Balkans are asking for our support ahead of a difficult winter, this is exactly the way to go. Contrast foreign influence in Europe through more cooperation and a stronger European perspective. Ukraine and Moldova are now candidates for joining our union. And today, we have proposed to grant candidate status to Bosnia and Herzegovina in the college decision. We have recognized Georgia's European perspective too. So, wind of change is once again blowing through Europe, and we have to capture this momentum. We have to push for this momentum. The Western Balkans belong in our family, and we have to make this very, very clear. It is a bit like in the 1970s, when Spain, Portugal, and Greece choose democracy. Oh, when freedom fighters tore down the Berlin Wall. I vividly remember that. Of course, it is up to the candidate countries to reform their economies and their institutions and to advance towards our union. But it is our responsibility to support them in every possible way. I think that is Europe's moment, and it is up to us to seize that moment. Dear ambassadors, our neighbors face the same challenges as we face: Russian aggression, energy insecurity, climate change, the threats to our open societies. There's an urgent need to work with all of them, including those who do not seek to join our union. And this is the third angle I want to look at on how we can engage with different partners. This is actually what led to the first meeting of the European Political Community in Prague last week. 44 countries have come together with a common agenda when it comes to European security, to the green and digital transition, to defending our democratic way of life. We all share a common sense of purpose. And I was glad, I must say, that our British friends also decided to join. That's good. There's a lot of work to do together. Take our trilateral energy, for example, that we closed in June with Egypt and Israel. It has played an important role in our strategy to get rid of the Russian fossil fuels. But my visits in Cairo and Jerusalem were about much more than gas, because our goal remains the transition away from fossil fuels, and the Mediterranean countries hold an immense potential for renewable energy. For example, we have launched a new hydrogen partnership that looks very promising for both Europe and Egypt. And at the same time, we're working in the same direction with other Northern African countries too, because we know we need the energy, we need renewable energy, we need the hydrogen, and those Northern African countries have in abundance all the resources that are necessary. So all of a sudden, this energy crisis that we see at the moment makes a huge tectonic shift in the region, because we are diversifying away from Russia. And just let me give you one figure. Before the war, the European Union was 75% of the global demand of pipeline gas. 75%. So this huge demand is moving away from Russia and turning towards the global south. Not only looking for fossil fuels right now as we need them immediately, but mainly looking at a future that is with renewable energy, that's clean, and where they have, the other side of the Mediterranean, they have the resources in abundance. So Europe can promote and accompany their transition from a fossil fuel economy for all of us towards a net zero future. This is Europe's offer to third countries, starting with our neighbors. It is based on our European interests and on our values, and it is designed to deliver long-lasting benefits to the countries that choose to do business with us. Of course, as I said, it is not only about energy. In Cairo, I also announced that we will invest 3 billion euros to improve food systems in the region. Millions of people in the Middle East and North Africa are now facing the consequences of Putin's war on Ukrainian crops. It is to address this crisis that we created the so-called solidarity lanes for Ukrainian exports. Over 10 million tons of Ukrainian grain, oilseeds and other products have already been exported via our solidarity lanes. Today, over 60% of Ukrainian food exports rely on these lanes. And 30% of Ukraine's grain exports are going immediately to low and middle income countries in Africa, in the Middle East and in Asia. So I think it's very important that we set the record straight. It is Putin who created with his war the food crisis, and it is Europe that is working to end it. And that's the story that we have to tell all together. The Middle East and North Africa also face, of course, a long-term food security issue. You know that local agriculture needs to adapt to the changing climate. And modern technology offers a great number of solutions. So from precision irrigation to vertical farming to new crops adapted to climate change, but they have to be brought to the region. So Europe can contribute with both investment and, of course, world-class expertise. That's the reason why we have set aside 7.7 billion euros only until 2024, so it's a lot of money for a short time, for the food security topic. Countries all across our region have an urgent need to transform their economies for the challenges of a new era. And our union's greatest strength has always been its transformative power, our capacity to promote economic and social progress through cooperation. And it is in this spirit that we must also step up our engagement in Central Asia. The region is a gateway between Europe, Russia and China. And it is going through an era of turbulent transformation. Some countries are pushing for reforms that seemed unthinkable just a few months ago. And they deserve all our political and economic support. So this is the time to enhance our economic engagement in Central Asia and provide alternatives to the region and to be connected to the global economy. I want Europe to be a partner for change in Central Asia, because the global geopolitics are also changing. You know that tectonic plates are shifting, and in times like these, we must be ready to sail uncharted waters. We must engage beyond our immediate neighborhood and the circle of our traditional allies. I think only if we do this can we contribute into shaping the future of fast-changing regions and make a positive difference in the lives of millions of people. And this leads me to my fourth and final point on Europe's global engagement. At the beginning of this year, I had the opportunity to visit Senegal and meet a group of young entrepreneurs. And they told me about all the obstacles they face. But it was amazing to see how much energy, how much talent these young people in Africa and Senegal had and showed. And then I visited a national project for vaccine manufacturing, which we are financing through Global Gateway Investment Program, a place where Africa's pharmaceutical independence is taking shape with Europe's support. It is mRNA vaccines being produced in Africa for Africa. So just the step we have to do. It has been 1 year now since we launched our Global Gateway Investment Program. And since then, the demand for a strong and value-based infrastructure investment program has only grown stronger. First, COVID has highlighted the urgency of investing in resilient health systems, but also, for example, in the digital infrastructure. Second, more and more countries are dealing with the rise in energy and food prices. And third, a Belt and Road debt crisis is now in full swing. Tens of countries are massively indebted with China. 8 of these countries, from Angola to Laos, will spend in 2022 more than 2% of their gross national income to pay their debt to China. Our global gateway investment is about giving countries a better choice, to give them an alternative. It's investments that will be sustainable, not only for our partners' finances, that's important, yes, but also for the environment and, of course, for the local communities. They have to benefit from that. And I mentioned our investment in vaccine manufacturing in Africa that we are also now extending to Latin America. There's so much to do. For instance, we are financing new energy and transport corridors in Africa. We will invest in clean power generation, in the electrification of rural areas, in the connection between landlocked regions and the big cities and the coast. Or take the Asian Pacific, where the footprint of Chinese investment is massive, of course. A good example is our new Just Transition partnership with Vietnam, which aims to accelerate the transition from coal into the renewables. That's a huge leap forward, and we're supporting that. And we're supporting the Pacific state of Kiribati to build a new harbor that will bring new opportunities to one of the islands while respecting the fragile environment. So Global Gateway is the opportunity to end unhealthy dependencies and to invest in partnerships of equals instead. That is our offer to the world. 300 billion of possible investment. But we need the good projects. We need the mature projects. And that's where we need you. You are the ones who know the regions. You are the ones who know the partners. We need your advice. We need your knowledge. And I know that I can rely on that. This is where your role as ambassadors is so crucial. You are basically our ears on the ground. Europe needs you. We need your knowledge. We need your expertise. We need, you know it all in the region, your connections to the region. Europe needs you to identify ideas and projects for Global Gateway that can make a real difference in our partner countries. And you are in the unique position to bring together our member states that are part of Global Gateway to focus on common strategies and on common priorities. We all know that it is so important to be present in the regions where you are the ambassadors, that we show this is one European voice that is speaking to our partners. Therefore, bringing together our member states, bringing together the European level, I very much rely on you because you are the ones who can make it happen. We all know that we must do more together. More than ever before, our fate, so Europe's fate, depends on our global outreach. The war in Ukraine will be decided first and foremost by Ukraine's brave fighters in Kherson, in Kharkiv, and all along the front line. We know that. But it will also be decided by our global response to Russia's aggression. So we need all continents to rise up in defense for the rules-based order. Because the rules-based order belongs to all nations in the world. The war in Ukraine is not only a European war. It is a war for the future of the entire world. So Europe's horizon can only be the entire world. And I truly count on you to keep up the excellent work you're doing and to bring our voice and our values to all corners of the world. Let me wish you a very good conference. Many thanks for listening to me, and in this sense, long live Europe.